Well, good morning, everybody. This is Gulf Harbour Radio, ZMH286, and we have, what do we have today? Patricia and David. That's always a fixture here to talk to you. And the weather today, well, like it was yesterday, actually, was pretty decent. About an hour and a half after I talked to you yesterday, saying finally the wind had gone down. Well, the clouds came back, the icy rain came back, the wind came back, and we had a totally miserable day. In the early evening, it had got down to 10 degrees when we'd had this icy blasts of rain on and off. So the poor people coming to this, I don't envy them. Currently, we have 12 degrees. It's a real heat wave here. 1014.3 and rising, and it's about 10 to 12-ish from the southwest. Hate those southwest winds. Our house wobbles around. We've got a bit of loose spouting, plastic spouting, and it's got this very annoying high-pitched noise that just we've had for what seems like a week now. Okay, we've got some interesting reports from some of the boats out there. Runaway Bay on their way to New Zealand. He's at 2114 and 177 at the moment. 25 knots from 150 magnetic. Let's call that 25 knots from the southeast. Alchemy 2, way over nearing Havana, might even be going in about now. That's at 2218 and 16719, going into the Havana Pass in New Caledonia. 20 knots from the southeast. 2 metre confused seas, 1022 and 50% cloud cover. They'll be very keen to get into the shelter of the reef. So last night they had a very sporty ride, good speeds though, 20 to 25 knots of wind. Lupan are on their way from Suva to Mommy Bay at the moment, left early this morning, currently at 1837 and 17817 with no wind. That's a bit of a surprise. 1017, 80% cloud cover, 27 degrees. Boy, they're, I wouldn't look for too much wind. Port Sandwich, just talked to Eye Candy, very, very light on there, of course. I never seem to, it's a very sheltered area, that particular anchorage, 1010, and it's a nice 25 degrees too. So there we are, Minerva Reef. We have Laris at Minerva Reef, staging to come through to New Zealand, a really good idea. 20 knots from the northwest, slowly backing. Overcast with frequent rain showers, 1017. I guess they're not going to be swanning around the pass looking for crayfish in those conditions. So,
There's a frontal band.
a frontal band. You've got a frontal band, aren't you lucky? But you'll probably wait for that, and it's a good spot to have a bit of a rest until the onward journey.
It's a good choice.
Pardon?
It's a good choice.
It's a good choice, says David. All right, that's a good spread from people around the place. Thank you for those reports. It's interesting for people to hear. All right, a little bit of news. I'll just keep checking that the frequency's clear. Yeah, it sounds like it is. And just a couple more have come in from streaming. Port Vila, thank you. 1017, 80% cloud cover. A little southeast breeze, 23 degrees. And Mantra Ray Pass. Look that one up. Fuller from Jasper, 1015, 25% cloud cover, very light easterlies. So it doesn't look like there'll be an awful lot of wind for Lupan. Okay, what else have we got here? Bit of news. This is quite interesting, this one. 32-year-old Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price. Those of you who are athletic inclined will know her name, Fraser-Price. She has just achieved an amazing sprint record at the 2019 IAAF Championships. She won the 100-metre race in 10.71 seconds and is now the first person, male or female, to win 4 100-metre titles. And this was only 13 months after she'd given birth to her son. So a pretty fast lady, isn't she? Well, Beijing yesterday, I tell you what, I didn't do much late afternoon. We started to watch, because I just happened to come across it, the live broadcast for their big parade in Beijing for the 70th celebrations. I tell you what, this parade outstripped anything you could possibly imagine. It was absolutely astounding. They have a lot of people in China. What did you say? About 1.3 billion. And I tell you what, the organisation of this parade, it was on a hugely wide street. Well, it was obviously a big highway parading in front of the assembly Hoi Polloi. But first of all, it was all of the military stuff. There was, and it wasn't just what they had, it was how many they had. And it just went on and on and on, all their very long missiles and tanks and trucks and, oh, the drones were very interesting. It just went on and on and on, just oodles of them. And everything was absolutely, I mean, there wasn't a foot out of place, let alone one tank or truck or whatever in front of the other. It just went on and on and on. And then after that, there was a lot of military folk. And then there was amazingly colourful people, I guess, from all the different provinces. But we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of people waving wondrous things and all in different formations. And it was just, and the floats were unbelievable, very exotic, and again, very, very colourful. This went on, I tell you what, it was unbelievable. It was about 3 hours, and it was totally stunning. It was just absolutely faultless, and the people, there wasn't a fatty amongst them, folks. I don't know what they eat over there, but boy, everyone was just having a great time. Wonderful costumes, wonderful choreography, and it was just amazing. I tell you what, it was, I never thought I would sit there glued to it, but I called David over at one stage and he stayed for a long time of it too. It was really, really amazing. Oh, and then they had all the different aircraft flying by. But I tell you what, the air wasn't all that clear. It's very smoggy. But nevertheless, the aircraft put on a great display too. And not very high up, they actually had one very interesting display that I'm sure a lot of people had not seen before. They had two jets refueling from the tank aircraft right over the crowd. I mean, that was absolutely stunning. I don't know how long everyone had taken to do this, but it was a very, very impressive display. Okay, Japan has raised their sales tax to 10%, everybody, causing concerns about a recession in Japan. They're not doing too well over there. And a very interesting email, I didn't know this, Southern Cross, thank you very much. The boat, a big power boat, Liberty, I think it's quite a big boat, motor cruiser, 20 metres. Some of you will know it was in Vanuatu this year. It actually passed them coming around Chesterfield and then had a mishap. It went through lines in the water which wrapped around both props and ripped things asunder, and the leak was so bad they had to abandon ship. The motor cruiser has been lost. They were lucky enough to be picked up by a P&O liner that was on its way from Noumea to Brisbane. But boy, what bad luck. Probably if they'd been 20 foot to one side or the other, they would have missed it. But that just ripped everything asunder, and they just couldn't stem the flow of water. The pumps just couldn't keep up. So no harm lost to the people, but the loss of a rather nice 20-metre cruiser. Pretty dramatic looking bridge, an arched bridge. It's one of these, well, I'd call it a swing bridge. It's one of, I think it's only the second largest in the world. But anyway, in Taiwan, the whole thing collapsed. And there unfortunately were boats below, and a tanker truck smashed into the boats below. At the time I'm reading this, they haven't got the people out from the boats, but I guess they're working on that. So that's a bit of a drama there. I told you I wasn't going to talk about this impeachment process anymore, but there has been a survey done in the United States and concerning the impeachment, and the country is now split 47 to 47 on the impeachment issue. It has also been revealed that Mr. Trump asked Scott Morrison, he's the Australian Prime Minister, he's been there over a year. Anyway, he asked him for assistance, in the Mueller inquiry, trying to discredit that, and evidently the Prime Minister and the Senate in Australia agreed to help. So that's a bit of an interesting situation. Mind you, Australia are very, very pally with the United States. Over near Chile, Robinson Crusoe Island. This is an island in the Juan Fernandez group. It's about 600 miles west of Chile, about halfway down. It's quite famous, the Robinson Crusoe Island, because it was where a Scotsman was marooned for 4 years, and that prompted the writing of Robinson Crusoe. But anyway, it's in the spotlight at the moment because the Chilean government has given permission to a Dutch-American textile magnate to use heavy machinery to dig for pirate treasure. This is a beautiful, beautiful island, and evidently it's archaeologically interesting, so everyone's a bit upset about this. But evidently the fabled treasure trove from the, what's his name, the Spanish Juan Esteban Ubilla. He was a Spanish pirate of the 18th century. People have been looking for it for about 20 years, but they have found, this guy has got hold of this information from a Chilean person, and he's determined that it's there, and he's now got permission to dig for it in this sort of what they call a synthetic tunnel in the area. It's going to require some quite big machinery, but it has an awful lot of gold, statues from Peru, and evidently a beautiful necklace from the wife of the last Inca fellow there. Can't remember his name, one Huaca or something like that. Anyway, 800 barrels of gold and silver and all the good stuff that you think of in the pirate treasure. So that will be interesting to see what happens. Talking about ancient stuff, there have been 3 men arrested in Greece. There are a lot of shipwrecks in the Aegean, and they removed over 24 amphoras. Don't know why. David goes into horrors over amphoras because I dragged him around various museums in Greece, and of course they just have these just acres of amphoras, most of them broken in one way or another. But anyway, he can't see why anyone would bother going to jail for these pointy-bottomed, two-handled pottery jars. They used them to transport wine and olive oil and things in the old days, and there's an awful lot of them around. Actually, that's all about you find in Greece, because we found diving there, it was absolutely barren of fish and coral or anything like that. All you saw was the odd Coke bottle. We never came across any amphoras, but if we did, all antiquities are in fact state property. So whilst you can have a look at them, maybe get them, you can't do much with them. Certainly can't take them home, and they'd be a pain in the neck anyway with their salty bottoms. Okay, if you're feeling wealthy and you need something very highly prized from New Zealand, Manuka honey has got some really interesting health properties. And if you go to Harrods at the moment, you might be lucky enough to buy one of only 1,230 gram jars for £1,388. Now, the reason that these are very, very highly priced, and in fact one guy has bought 10 of them, they have a very high UMF rating, 31 in fact. This is a rating that they get from 3 chemical markers associated with this product, and this batch has scored off the charts for all of these chemical markers. The guy started his business about 7 years ago. He's a pilot, and he drops his hives into very isolated parts of the North Island where no one can get to, and where there's just Manuka. So what with the climatic conditions or whatever happened on this particular batch, they were very, very high in this UMF rating. So I'm not sure what it does. Gosh, it must do an awful lot to something to be that highly prized. Anyway, there we are. Thank you very much. We've got a report in here from ARCA. Oh no, this is from Mandy. Hang on a minute, I'll just have a read here. Their Scoots is in Sarwini Bay, and ARCA told them yesterday that they'd encountered a lot of pumice in dry waters, so the pumice is getting around as you would expect it would. currently at Sarwini, 10 knots from the south, and in Vanuatu, 11 east-southeast from Eagles winds. I can't remember where they are, and blustery in Lifu. So there's hopefully all those boats are well spread out in Lifu. Thank you very much.
They better be.
Yeah, they better be,
better
says
be.
David. I'm not sure what's coming up here, but I better pass the microphone and we'll see. I'll just check on the frequency first and see if there's anybody with anything. Getting the odd email in. Thank you very much to let us know who's going from where to New Zealand and what time you're looking at. I've got a list going here so that we make sure we do look out to cover the weather for the different people leaving at different times. So let us know, add you to the list. Make sure we cover that. And here's David.
Do we know how many people have actually left for New Zealand?
No, about 3 boats, I think. We're only hearing from Runaway Bay.
With all the to-doing about going on Monday from last week, that we're trying to figure out how many boats did go, and I haven't seen that many, less than a handful. If you know of boats that went, we'd like to know. We're getting some emails and some reports from a few of them, but not too many. But it will be very interesting to see what weather they're getting for this. Okay, well, good morning to all of you, and quite a similar synoptic picture today as yesterday. The eastern high centered, it will be centered by around lunchtime at 35 south, 150 west, so pretty much in the same spot, more or less south of French Polynesia. The western high, its partner over on the west side there, it's at 32 and 155 east. So one's at 150 west, the other's at 155 east. And that puts it just off the coast of Australia, somewhere between Brisbane and Sydney, but offshore just a tad bit. And in between is, of course, our complex low system, with the multiple fronts, multiple troughs, multiple lows. Quite an amazing view, really, from satellite imagery, looking at all of this. There are fronts that are still running up New Zealand. So while we've got some sun now, I'm looking out there and I see cloud buildups. So we will be getting a little bit of rain again today from the last of these frontal bands and troughs and so forth. The majority of the system is just east of the country. Now, the cruising routes from New Zealand to Fiji or Tonga show 4 frontal bands this morning, looking at the satellite picture. The boats that are around 20 south, give or take a degree or so, should be involved, certainly in one of them at that point. I don't think any boats have left from New Caledonia to New Zealand just as well. The winds are mostly going to be on the smack on the nose for that voyage. So I don't suspect too many took advantage of it, if any. Now, this western high is the player, and it continues to ridge eastward. But the center doesn't move very much. The center, by lunch Friday the 4th, is going to be in about the same spot that I just told you. But the ridge continues to push toward the east. And its axis lies about 27 south, roughly 27 south, running more or less west to east. So very little air near the axis, as you hopefully know by now why that is. Variable winds, meaning they could be from a multitude of directions and very light. So I would say it's a motor if you happen to be that far south. I don't think anybody's that far south yet. The next cold front for New Zealand looks to be late Saturday, Sunday time frame, the 6th or the 7th. The models don't quite agree on these dates, but rest assured the front is coming, as well as a depression. So those heading to New Zealand from Fiji, well, you know what winds you're getting, but for you folks that are up there in Fiji and Tonga that are curious, you heard from Patricia, the few that have reported in what they're getting. So essentially, those that are at about 21 south, give or take on that latitude, winds look to be south-southeast about 20, gusting up to 27 knots. So that's pretty much what we told you was going to happen. Fairly stiff winds on the periphery of this big pie. Tomorrow, the wind should be southeast about 10 to 15, gusting up to 20, so a little bit lighter at that point. And again, the frontal band today is around 20. If you're at 20 near 178 east, you'd be in about the middle of it. By Friday, the winds at 25 south, roughly 25 south, should be southeast about 10 to 15. And on Saturday, as as the few of you continue toward New Zealand, you should have light southerlies on Saturday. So that's on the nose, but they're pretty light, so you can deal with that, I'm sure, whether you're a purist in tack or you just motor sail it. Okay, up in the tropics, switching gears now. Once again, the Solomon's Trough does lie over the whole group, and that one now runs to Tuvalu, and it goes on to Tokelau. Another trough over the Santa Cruz Islands runs south-southeast to affect most of Vanuatu. You could look at satellite imagery and see this pretty clearly. And lastly, the northern Cooks, again, is sitting under their trough. Now, Tonga shows light scattered cloud on imagery, but there is a trough to the south, and it's probably going to be pushing north up to Tongatapu in the not too distant future, which is going to be probably late tonight. So cloud and showers may be the ticket for a little bit later on toward midnight. For Vavau and the Hapais, the cloudy conditions probably will bring isolated showers and, I guess about the same weather tomorrow for Tonga. Winds today, north-northeast to northeast, about 10 to 15. So you can see how that wind has changed, being pulled into that trough that's further south. Later on today, we're going to see the winds changing. They'll become south-southeasterlies, clashing with light easterlies. Not a severe clash, but enough to support what we call directional convergence. So that's essentially your trough, and that will bring the isolated showers. Friday, southeast winds are going to be rising up to about 20 knots. Now, so far, in looking at the various models, the heavy convective activity that we talked about yesterday is, expected probably Tongatapu first. I would say Tongatapu is going to be the area that will pop it before any of the rest of the group. But the rest of the group will probably see it Monday or Tuesday. So this is going to be quite an exciting time weather-wise. Quite a bit of convection. So strong winds and squalls, the usual rain and so forth, coming your way. Over to Fiji, imagery does show basically scattered cloud, but many flying areas as well. So the usual chance of showers for the larger islands. Again, the broken record theme, the big islands cause the air to rise and you get your cloud and rain. And for the rest of the smaller islands, you usually get your afternoon showers, typical tropical showers for the rest of Fiji today. This sort of thing will continue tomorrow. Winds today fairly light, southeast about 10 to 15 for the Lau to Kendavu, and southeast 15 or so for the rest of Fiji. That Tui Ra Pass area could see winds 20 knots by lunch, so it's going to be a little bit breezy as the winds funnel through that pass. The winds will pick up tomorrow, probably southeast, getting up to 20 knots. I would say southwestern Viti Levu to Kendavu will see up to 25 knots. Now, when I say southwestern Viti Levu, it probably doesn't involve Muscat Cove. It'd be a little bit further south and west of that. but in the more exposed areas, in other words. Thursday onward, expect the trough that is to the south to be pushed north over the group. Now by Sunday, we should start to see the significant convective activity that we talked about. Sunday into Monday does not look very nice at this point. So be prepared for that. Not very pleasant. So whatever you're going to do, you might want to finish that up shortly. Vanuatu has trough activity all over the group. Trish is looking at it right now on the computer where we've got the imagery screen. Fairly light convection for the moment, but don't be surprised by isolated heavy falls from time to time. The clouds look like they could bring that at any moment in various places. The winds look to be moderate to fresh, east-southeast 20, and there'll be areas of 20 to 25. Now, this looks to continue tomorrow. Troughing is probably going to continue right through Sunday, and some of the models show all of Vanuatu involved. One model just shows northern Vanuatu. Either way, it's going to be pretty breezy up and down the chain, so be wary of that. And all of that bad convective weather, of course, is going to be also heading east to affect the Fiji area. So a lot of activity is coming. And on to New Caledonia now. Imagery shows quite a bit of cloud virtually everywhere. Not nice weather at all, folks. The winds 20 to 25, mostly east-southeast. I'm seeing gusts up to 30. This goes for the loyalties as well. Tomorrow, a little bit lighter, east-southeast, 15 to 20. It'll be a bit cloudy. By dinner tomorrow, we could see a rise back up to 20 knots. And on Friday, east-southeast, about 15 to 20. Now, the actuals early this morning, this is about 6 a.m. The Outer Reef, southeast 25. Ile de Pan, southeast 22 knots. Noumea, reporting southeast 27. The barometer 1021.4, 1021.4. And Lifu, southeast 28. So not so nice out there, folks. Certainly take it easy for sure. One final little funny thing here. We got an email again on our favorite subject, the green flash. And yes, a lot of people are getting frustrated if they're not seeing the green flash. Does it exist? Well, yes, it certainly does. And so I'll spend about a minute talking about this. As any of you who took science in high school know, that the atmosphere really is a prism, and it separates the light into the various colors. You remember the mnemonic? I'll never forget it, really. And this was a high school thing. This is a young man. Roy is his name. His full name is Roy G, as in golf. Roy G. Biv, his last name. Bravo, India, Victor. So Roy G. Biv, if you could remember that name, that represents the colors that are in the rainbow in line with the frequencies. R for red, O for orange, Y for yellow, G for green, etc., etc. So anyhow, before sunset, all these different colors overlap, so you can't see them individually. But as the sun does start to set, then the spectrum starts to break up a bit, one at a time, starting with the longest wavelength, which is red. Now, the one color that the eye is going to grab the most happens to be green. Occasionally, you could see blue. And of course, sunset's the best time to do it, but it does happen at sunrise as well. Now, if you're looking, you see at that point, if the visibility is good, we don't have a whole lot of pollution, that kind of messes us up. And of course, you need a clear view to the horizon. You'll see that little disk that's sitting just above the horizon there. Now, The key to this is magnification. For those of you that are having a hard time seeing the green flash, now remember that when the green flash actually occurs and you see that disk actually slipping down below the horizon, you really are not looking at the sun. You are really looking at a mirage. Yes, the sun's gone. The sun is technically set. So what you can do is take out your binoculars. Now don't panic. It has to only happen when you see the disk and the sun is setting. You don't want to blow out your eyeballs with looking at the sun. So please don't do it early. So just at that point, at that very point where that sun is about to sink down, bring those binoculars up, and I absolutely guarantee that you will see a green flash. So there you go. And what I may do the next couple of days, since we're in passage mode ideas, is to go over a few key things, a few key items. I don't know if I'll do it every day. I'll go through my notes. A lot of this is all on our papers, but we know how lazy most of you are. So I may do some of that. We'll do a bit of a review. And the boss is giving me,
questions on weather.
Oh, questions on weather. Here's the chief.
Well, one of the questions was a crystal ball question. How far away is the next Newcastle to New Zealand window? Those two should really have their honeymoon in New Caledonia, if you ask me. But anyway, I know there's a lot of you in Newcastle and are looking at that question, so I'll give that question to him. The winds reported from some of you are not as high as what David has just talked about. We've got Kuhela and Mesatroy and Namir, and they've got 90% cloud cover. Southeast 15 at the moment, a light shower, 1019 and 21 degrees. Eagles winds in Port Vila are talking about 11 east-southeast, 1016. And at Lifu, 10 to 14 east-southeast, 1018.5, 18 degrees, 90% cloud cover, and no rain in Lifu. So that's good. Thank you, John. So yes, did you have your crystal ball wiped off this morning?
Well, first of all, the winds that I'm giving on actual conditions, they do come from the Met services there. So a lot of the times they're going to be these monitoring stations. Some of them could be up on a hill. I know I spent quite a bit of time in New Caledonia, the Met service there, talking to various people about some items of interest that I had. So it just depends where you are. You could be in an area that's somewhat protected and whatnot, but these are, I'm not making these up. These are not model winds that I give you. They're actually coming from recording devices. So anyway, that just goes to show how variable things could be. As far as the crystal ball goes, I don't actually believe in those crystal balls. I use darts, but the next window from Newcastle to New Zealand, now that's a very good question. That is one of the hardest passages to do. We have done it so many times. I don't even know how many times we've done it, but it is a tricky one. And you do have to be prepared to either do westing or easting, and you really have to go with the flow. And there are lots of current that are on that trip. And I have looked at some of the data on currents, and they go every which way but loose, these currents. You could have one going west, and a couple miles later you'll have one going east. Whether they average out, it's hard to say, but you have that issue to deal with. So I can't answer that right now, of course, but I will look tonight, and tomorrow I'll let you know if I see anything that looks interesting. I know there are a lot of people in New Caledonia. There's a lot more people this season wanting to come to New Zealand than there were last season, for sure. So, okay, I'll do that. And here's the chief.
Well, this is from Whistler. Margie's a good photographer, as many of you know, because you would have seen her pictures on our website and on their blog. She's got some fantastic pictures, but she says if you want to photograph the green flash, try underexposing by 2 full stops and the colour will not be blown out. So anybody who's click on the pushing the button trick, or you could just maybe do a video, try that, underexposed by 2 full stops. Okay, and Anne Nichols says, we've been looking through our binoculars for a long time. David, you're the only other person that seems to know that it's the best way to see the flash. They're at Octopus. Gone with the Wind is at Octopus. Where's Octopus? Don't know. Anyway, thank you for that, Annie. All right, that's about it. Thank you for swapping some information here. And if there's anybody else, please call. The sounds of silence. Okay, it's actually quite a good propagation day today, so hopefully you heard that reasonably clearly. Quite a few people on streaming, which often indicates that there is not a good clear signal. But we'll be back again tomorrow. David has promised to have a look at that passage. There are quite a few people in New Caledonia, so that's interesting. And we'll talk about that crystal ball, and I'll get the cleaning cloth out tonight. Cheers, everybody. Have a good day. I wish we didn't have so much chilly weather and wind, but that's what we've got. So we'll just be hopeful for a decent summer. Cheers all. God, I hope we do get a decent